and we'll get this party on the road and stop my share. All right. Tim, can you see me? Can you hear me?
I can see you. I can hear you.
All right. I'm going to spotlight
you. You look fabulous.
Wow. Well, thank you very much. It is Thursday, May the 13th. I'm Joel, joined by my partner in crime, Mr. Tim Thompson. This is the weekly briefing. What do we do on the weekly briefing? This really is a moment where we stop each week, and Tim and I like to share with you the state of the industry. Like we have our finger on a pulse that we're always watching, and we're seeing some trends that many of you don't have access to. So we like to take this moment each week to say, hey, here's what we're seeing, here's what we're observing on the business side of running a creative firm. So Tim, that's our perfect setup for something observing, right? That's kind of interesting because let's just say this. Every creative firm would say, we want more sales and it's hard to get sales. We have a sales problem, blah, blah, blah. But lately, we've been noticing on the other side of the equation, there's a challenge with resources. And we're hearing things like, I can't find the talent I need, or the talent I want is too expensive, or what's going on. People don't want to come work for me. They don't want to come back to work, come back to the office. There's all these issues going on. And we thought, is this really a trend? Is there something really happening? So what are you seeing?
Yeah, it's pretty interesting, and almost makes me think that we could have a larger conversation just looking at all of the quarterly numbers that we could look at with clients, and just even show how the trends work and what we are able to see. But specifically, what we saw in this moment is there are certain ratios that we look at: employee ratios, revenue ratios, and we do comparison year over year. And then what we like to do is just also average them out for our entire client base, just to show people what we're talking about and what's possible to do with their business. And the number we're looking at now that kind of drew our attention is this revenue to employee ratio. Joel's going to write it out as we do this. I feel like I'm doing like a romper room or something, Joel. I see what.
I loved romper room. Don't you be dogging on romper room.
We got some Captain Kangaroo going on here. So we have this revenue to employee ratio. We've talked about this before in the weekly briefing. It works like this. You have the total revenue from your company divided by the total number of employees that you have. That's staff people, not freelancers. And we like that range to be between $200,000 and $300,000. If it's at $200,000, we say to people, you probably have all of the staff people you can afford right now. If you're at 300,000, we like to point out that you can easily hire someone right now. If you're around 250, it's kind of looking at strategy and choice of where you're trying to go, what you're trying to look at. So that's the looking at freelancers, looking at staff, and trying to see those numbers. So it's important to us to kind of have that in place because what we saw in quarter one, which is, as long as we've been tracking these numbers, is the first time I've been seeing these numbers this high. But we saw the number in quarter one, 2021, that employee ratio is at 267,000 and some change. It's like 267, 400 or 450, something like that. So I know that that's not 300,000. That's not a huge indicator for some people. But here's what we're often used to seeing. We're used to seeing this number really in the 240. The highest we really have ever seen it is 250, 55. I imagine 260, something like that is close to it. But what this is a clear indicator is that on average, our employees have money to hire staff people, yet they're not hiring them, right? That's what we would say here. It's like, hey, you have money to hire staff people, you should go hire them. Take that piece of information and the conversations that we're having with a lot of clients. And what we recognize is that not only do they have the money that they need to hire people, they actually really need to hire people, and the talent isn't there.
Now, let me ask you a question, because, when you and I often sit down and we do like an introduction with a company and we kind of look under the hood for the first time and we examine that ratio. If that number is high, it usually means something. If that number is on the low end of that range, that usually means something. Do you want to give people a sense of what what that barometer or pulse measurement tells them?
Yeah, if it's high, it usually means that the company has too many freelancers. So they're depending too much on freelancers, and they're not investing enough of their revenue into their company to retain that knowledge. So they could spend more money on staff, not have to freelancers as much, and have people that they could build a company with. So we call that retained knowledge. If it's on the low end, it's the opposite. They might have too many staff people, and therefore it's not necessarily bad, but what it does is it reduces the flexibility of the company to bring on anybody else new. So to offer a staff position, or to have to pivot in a time of change. So we often see on the low end when revenue dips for clients, or it's a first time client and they've never really known there was a ratio to kind of compare by. But that's what we're looking at, is the staff to freelancer kind of mix of the company and what they should be doing.
Okay, so now let's ask this question, right? In the practical sense, okay, if I'm an owner, what do I do about that? Do I just negotiate harder? Do I maybe offer, I get a company dog. I put a ping pong table in the office, like, right? I think there's obviously, yeah. I'm setting you up for some sort of obvious answers that are not long-term solutions, shall we say?
No, that is a good question, because here's what we have to keep in mind is that the people, that talent, when they come work for you, they're actually want to work for you, right? That's part of it. Get paid, have salary, get benefits, blah, 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 blah. And that's kind of the competitive marketplace. But they specifically want to work with companies, especially high-end talent, when they know that company is going to help them grow in their career. They want to leverage that company's relationships, their reputation that's out in the marketplace, so they can say, oh yeah, I've worked there. Or I currently am working there, and it helps them career build. So they're looking for long-term value and long-term growth from their own personal choices. And that company that's hiring them has to be able to say, beyond just I'll pay you more, which could be, a strong decision for some. It's really like, where are you going with your company that other people want to join you for the ride?
Yeah, I'm sitting here, just notice as you're talking, thinking about, your entrepreneurial formula and how needs plus resources equals solutions, right? And obviously we put a lot of time into how do we get more clients, okay? These are the people that have needs. And it's like, okay, how do I get them and attract them to my firm? Now there comes this question of, well, wait a minute, what about the other half of the equation? How do you get talent equally? Because the quality of your clients is also equally as important as the quality of your talent if you're going to move your business forward and achieve your goals and so on.
Yeah, here's what's interesting too. This is one of those myths that people often proclaim and hold on to for too long. It's that catch-22. How do I attract that client unless I have good work? How do I get good work unless I have that client? Same with talent, by the way. How do I attract that talent without good work? How do I get the good work without that talent? Same proposition, or same perpetual kind of issue that they have. And they believe it's a catch-22, but we know it's something very different. The reason why a client is going to choose you, an employee is going to choose you, anything in the creative field is going to choose you, is not about the work that you've already done, your wallpaper. That just shows that you're capable of doing something. Why an employee wants to join your company is what you're going to do with them and for them as you build together. And I think it's that different proposition of like, how do they come along for the ride with you? What is the why behind your business that they can believe in and follow? And what is the journey that you're going to walk them through that they know this is the right place at this time? No matter what the competitive marketplace is, no matter what you're willing to pay them, this is the right decision because they're going to follow you for the why of your business.
Yeah, and I'm hearing you now start to talk some positioning language, right? This idea of what is your why? How are you expressing it? How are you getting that out there into the world? And it's interesting because think about it. If if a creative firm is poorly positioned and they're going out to the world saying, hey, clients, we have all these services, right? Or we have these hours and rates or commodities, whatever. That's not an exciting story to be invited into. Well, similarly, if you're looking for talent, it's not, well, we pay these salaries, we have these benefits, and we have a ping pong table. there's obviously a much larger story that derives from your why. So I think there is this argument to be made that great positioning is going to help satisfy both sides of my little cheesy diagram, right? It's not just going to invite clients into an exciting story. It's going to invite top talent, because here's what I know from my experience is when you're hiring top talent, it's never about the money. Believe me, money may not be everything, but it's certainly not nothing either. But I know that great hires and great talent, it's like, yes, the money is appropriate, but I'm really here because of where we're going together, the story that we're going to tell together, the journey that we're on together.
And what's interesting too is that I would think, probably like many people, I would speculate because everyone's working from home, it would be easier to get people, right? Because now I don't have to just, if I'm in Los Angeles, hire a Los Angelino to work for me. They can work anywhere. We're all used to kind of working remotely. But I think the opposite kind of happened is that now that people can work anywhere from anywhere, really the attraction of going to place, now I can be in New York and a firm I want to work with Los Angeles, I can finally work for them. I don't have to move to Los Angeles to do it. So there was this big dynamic shift that took place. And the biggest impact I can see right now is really on producers. Producers seem to be the hardest to come by. And here's the data points that we have, right? We have employees that are looking for producers, that's for sure. We have the talent of producers we see on our roll-up and the work we're doing. We can see that there was a shift in producer management. And also we get headhunters that call us kind of curious about who do we know, what's going on. And we often avoid the headhunter conversation, but the data point that we collect is like, what titles are they looking for? And it's often in the creative field. It's rarely as much in the production field as this, but there is something happening in the production field that made this shift. And therefore, it's not just about the wallpaper. It's not just to show like how creative it can be. These are producers that also need to leverage the company's story to show what their capabilities are. They want to have something that's challenging. They want to have clients that are big. They want to have something that moves the ball forward or takes on a new strategy or tactic of a project. And they want to show off. They want to prove that they're worth the dollars and worth the efforts to collaborate with. So there's this is way more about the why, the story of the company, than it is just the pretty pictures that we often focus on as a business.
It's really interesting what you're saying, because the parallels between the client side versus the talent side. Yes, we often attract talent because look at the cool work that we do, which we all know now, well, great work is just the table stakes. It's your ante to get in the game. If you're hiring a producer, yeah, he or she is going to be like, well, yes, you produce great work. So do a lot of people. So I'm talking to you. I'm interested because you have great work, but there has to be something more. And I'm noticing what Ed here has said after just finishing a round of hiring. This is exactly the biggest question that the final round of applicants had. Like, wow, that's a great little anecdote.
Yeah, another data point. And I'm sure that most people are in these conversations and, what are the questions that you're being asked? I know for sure people are asking about lifestyle balance. Hey, if I'm working from home, do I have to work 24 hours a day? What are the limits? And I think a lot of companies have worked that out over the last year to understand those limits. And honestly, I've seen a lot of lifestyle improvements made because of people's cameras are in their homes. So it's very obvious, hey, you have to leave now, you have to go do something. Yeah. So I think there's a lifestyle part of it. Yeah. I could see salary played into it, but I haven't heard a lot of people's salaries going up. It's not like I've heard people getting $10,000 to $20,000 more than they do in the marketplace. It doesn't seem to be the driving effort. But I do know that body of work is one of those items that often come up of like, what clients do you work with? What projects will I be on? And kind of specialties of like, is it visual effects? Is it 3D? Is it 2D? Is it live action? Those are so the other indicators that seem to be a big player.
Yeah, I'm thinking about what you just said about, a producer might ask a question like, well, what types of clients are you working with now? Are we going to go after in the future? And there's now almost a 3 R's kind of a question, meaning how do we filter and vet clients, right? Like, are they socially responsible, or are we just going to take whoever pays us the most money? We don't care whether or not it is in conflict with our ethics. I mean, those kinds of questions are becoming more and more important and relevant, which I think is very cool. So there's definitely, let's just say that the nature of the game is shifting, and that the point you made about the distance and the remote as a result of the pandemic, yeah, I don't know what that means yet. It's like, yeah, the whole idea of, yeah, come to New York and work in Manhattan at the big whatever. Well, I don't need to go to New York. So does that make it easier to attract that talent? Harder because they don't have to move? I don't know. That's a really interesting question.
Yeah, I'll just say that the shift is different than I expected. As I played out my mind 6 months ago, I kind of thought like, well, this is very exciting. You can grab somebody from anywhere, any marketplace. Now someone in Asheville, North Carolina totally fits into our operations, instead of it being some extreme effort that you had to do years ago and make it all fit together. So, and there's a new kind of playing field this way. And Joel, one thing that comes to my mind is that value pyramid that you present in Jumpstart, where you say, if you want to have, I'm going to ruin it. So you might want to.
I'll try and draw it as you go along here. So I'll try and walk you through it.
But if you want to have good work, you have to have good clients, right? That's what you would.
Right. It's this idea. So yeah, great work comes from what? Better clients. And better clients come from, I'll call it community here for our purposes, right? This is like having a platform. And that, of course, flows from unique and narrow positioning, because that's what really makes you stand out and gather a following and get your message out there. And of course, that flows from your genius. But I think what I'm hearing is, you've got to build these things up, get clear about your genius, get clear about your positioning, then start building this community. Then you're going to win these better clients. But guess what? We almost need to update that to say not just better clients, but better talent also.
Yeah, and positioning, I think, is one of those words that's it's perfectly accurate, but we've only used it in the terms of marketing to clients, and we haven't necessarily focused on what a positioning statement might be to say, hey, this is also relevant for good talent or great talent. Yeah. But here's what's interesting is like, during Revolve last year, we were bringing up these paradigms that were taking place of like, hey, there are two opposing ideas working together and both are true. There seems to be something specific here of like, hey, there's a moment here where we have to pay specific attention to something and update our positioning to recognize that. And positioning can be a message on your website, sure. I don't think that's where you're going to attract the talent, but you might find that the post that you do on LinkedIn change that message. You can be very proactive in Instagram to drawing out specific ideas about the project you've done in order for the future talent to be attracted to the work that you're doing or the clients that you're working with. So change your messaging just slightly on all the work that you're doing that you're forward facing out there, so that the people that need to hear it can hear it. Yeah. And that's what's really important. If you just start doing, again, if you're just a wallpaper person and you're saying, well, I hope, I'm just going to throw stuff against the wall and hope that it sticks and something's going to happen. Very foolish effort towards something that you're just wasting time with hopefully luck brings it in, opposed to knowing exactly what you're going for and getting people to join, to get on the train with you.
I'm going to actually spotlight our pal Ryan Summers for a moment. You know why? Because Ryan, welcome. How you doing?
Hey Ryan, good to see you.
Good to see you too. I'm smiling. I've been talking a lot about positioning, hearing a lot of weird things going on in the industry right now. So I'm very interested in hearing you guys talk about this.
Well, it's funny because you reached out to me last week on in the community, and you were saying, what's going on with some of these bigger players, older names, like their positioning is almost getting more generic and more bland. And of course, my theory is, well, they can get away with it. And there's also this natural evolution that as companies age, I'm trying to remember how I put it, they generally shift from being all about promotion to being about preservation. And you were like, yeah, that's it. What are you seeing?
Well, I mean, I'll just say the names. Like I was really surprised. 2 versions ago, I was involved for like a year with Imaginary Forces, kind of like rebranding and repositioning. And that was a struggle. And this is probably like 7 or 8 years ago, but that was a struggle just because they couldn't figure out what it was, because there were too many things to too many different people. And then since I left, and I've seen recently, they've gone super generic. Like if you look at their website, the wording, it echoes a lot of what I saw from Buck, that like their site, like it really feels like they're trying to masquerade like an agency to brands who don't really know what an agency serves, but then at the same time, not totally abandoning, they're an agency of cool, there's something interesting there, but it feels like I'm even seeing like one tier down, like Oddfellows just recently. I went to their site and it was literally the most generic. We are a content agency, like just like word salad. And then even the jobs that they were choosing to show, it actually really surprised me. The jobs they were choosing to show were very bland, very safe, very corporate. And you had to dig to find anything you could identify as what you would be excited about knowing about Oddfellows. So that, to me, it seems actually fairly exciting for everyone here, because we've been telling and hearing everybody say, like, get specific, niche down, find your genius, all those things. And I feel like the majority of major, like the places everyone's always wanted to work at, they're abandoning their genius. They're like, no, cool. Like Apple, like Microsoft, we're safe, we're cool. At the same time, we're seeing like Nando Costa and his team at Microsoft creating beautiful things that you would expect to come out of Imaginary Forces, but it's coming out of Microsoft like proper. It feels like the Wild West, because at the same time, like I'm like my finger on the pulse of the artists being at School Motion. Everyone is leaving the city centers, like at least the very senior people. Like there is a worse than what I thought happened in visual effects brain drain that's like 2 steps away from happening. And there's a bunch of reasons for that, but like people I would never to have expected leaving LA and leaving New York are like going to Texas, they're going to Colorado, they're going everywhere, but they're done. They are done with any of the whole like having to be tethered to someone else's kind of destiny and geographic location. So I'm really interested to hear how that affects the people that are here and what opportunities there are and what costs that's actually going to kind of create.
Well, I know some people, when they hear about narrowing, they get nervous because let's just say that, yes, there are right ways to do it, there are wrong ways to do it. We don't have to get into it now, but you're reminding me, Ryan, I'm going to drop an article I wrote a while ago. If anyone's like, narrowing, that sounds terrible, that sounds really scary. So that's in the chat. Feel free to take a look at that. You might find it helpful, but realizing there are many ways we can narrow, and some ways will actually expand opportunity rather than limit opportunities.
Joel, I really think you should be ghostwriting for pop stars. Narrowing, not harrowing. Like all these are like fairly almost like pop song titles here.
We Ryan, you bring up something interesting, and I would be curious to dive into it further. But are we looking at a trend, or are we looking? I don't mean to be insensitive, but are we looking at a dumbing down of an industry? You can imagine that somebody who hasn't yet had a position in marketing stepping into the job for the first time, and they're doing what everyone does, which is look at your competitors and write it for the company you're working at. So they're in a time of growth. You can imagine a larger company saying, oh, we're in a time of growth, let's bring on new people. And those new people who don't yet know the company, don't know how to carve out positioning, don't have the expertise yet, the experience yet, coming in and then just softening the message, basically trying to not get fired.
Yeah,
I can imagine that being true also.
Joel and I've talked about this a lot, and I wonder if some of those like newer shops or middle tier shops are reacting to these bigger shops doing that, like the kind of tastemakers. But I actually think I don't know if this is the right path, Joel, but I kind of wonder if this is more like a play to be acquired or to be absorbed. Like when I see, again, just naming names, when I see imaginary forces go bland and generic, that is not in the DNA of that company. They've always been, let's talk about the heat. Let's talk about our proximity to Hollywood. When I look at Oddfellows, like they're a quirky rebel like unit. When I see them saying we are a content agency that pulls the heartstrings through art and design, like these just bland generic words, like it almost feels like it's a play to be like, we're safe enough that we could just become your in-house design firm or your in-house design agency to me. And I don't know if that's the case, but
yeah, some consultant stepped in and told them how to make it sound in such a way that anyone could buy them instead of trying to get some specific owner or specific creative to be that cutting edge. Yeah. Which, by the way, just means that there's a lot of opportunity for people to step in now, right? This is when you can jump to the front of the line because you're the one that's carved yourself away from the garbage that's there. And it feels risky, as Joel's pointing out in that article, but we promise you it's not. Like, to be heard in the crowd takes a very specific voice.
Well, especially when that talent that they're relying on, because a lot of these studios have downsized, let go senior talent, relying on now on like freelancers just fill in spots when they need them. That talent is readily available by everyone, right? And there's a lot of those people that are looking for maybe a shot at a mid-sized studio or a new studio, jump up their pay rate just a little bit because they have the heat from being at those shops. That I just feel like it's a very tenuous time for a lot of these institutional, larger, older places, because if it's not your like arbiter of cool kind of history, and it's not your talent base, what is there left from the studio? It's not the location anymore. It's not your technical advantage because everybody's using the same software and hardware. So what's left? What makes those studios anymore if those two other things are, at play at least?
Here's the irony, I'll say. I'm going to drop another little link here for people that want to listen. Because you remember a couple of days ago, Tim, you and I talked about this in a podcast, and we were making this observation that statistically, like looking at thousands of company acquisitions over the years, that being narrowly positioned, where you have like a mini monopoly, is actually the number one driver of business value. So to your point, Ryan, if a company is thinking, well, let's go bland so that anyone could buy us, they're also potentially lowering the value, because what's their unique thing? Like, why? Well, if I can buy this company and they kind of do it all, they're jack of all trades, master of none. I can also buy another one like this, another one like this. Like now I'm shopping and buying amongst multiple offers. So I think the value is actually ironically going in the other direction. But maybe people are impatient. I don't know.
It feels like playing nickel defense to me. It feels like you've got a lead, but you're just trying to eke out the momentum and playing it safe. I mean, I'm not in that position, but I know what it was like to be very close to that decision-making position. And it just never feels like, to me, unless you're just hoping for a home run. Like if you're just hoping that like one of these major, tech companies lets go of their agency and they're like, we're just going to bring it in-house, and you're hoping you win the lottery. Like maybe that's it.
But that's wishful thinking, right? I mean, there are some people that will luck out, but as a strategist and business owner, you want to be doing what you can to not only just generate more revenue, but change that multiplier if you're going to be in that position of selling your business. And it is that there's like think about a monopoly. A monopoly doesn't basically gum up the system. They make something very specific and carve their way through so that they're only one in that field doing what they do. And we want people to know how to lean into what their gift is so that they do differentiate themselves. And the value is there. It's always about the value proposition. So how are you going to talk to your client to say, hey, you should pay us more for the same stuff everyone else does in your positioning? That's kind of a fool's game. I almost feel like, again, like some outside consultants came in from pharmaceuticals or healthcare system or school system, and then tell these companies how to soften everything so that they can, grow or in like the bottom line or something like that. I don't think that's why we get into this business.
So Tim, since we're short on time, by the way, apologies to Matthew Packwood. He wanted to jump in, but we're out of time. So Matthew, we'll get you on the next one. I do have to offer one shameless plug, Tim, because I think I should, I've been working on doing another live stream webinar to walk through this whole thing. And I feel like I should do it sooner than later, like maybe this time next week.
I think so. I think one, it's a good reminder for everybody to know what's there, but I do think this has to be, I want this at the front of everyone's mind, because this is a great moment to separate yourself from the crowd, gain momentum, and also compete in a marketplace that the talent is asking for differentiators. So every business owner kind of leans into it. Joel, I had a conversation with someone today, and they loved James, the conversation we had with James.
Oh, Swigert, yeah.
And we were trying to explain what came across when James was talking. And I said, you know what it is? It's ownership. Like, you could hear when James describes what his job is at Laundry, that he owns that job. He's not afraid to make decisions. He creates a leadership position. He moves forward, and he has like a boldness to it. He owns it. And in a lot of ways, I want the people listening to own this problem, like lean into this thing, recognize it's there, take advantage of the opportunity, do something different for yourself, for your industry, for this moment, and know that you created this moment yourself. That's what we're always about, that transformation.
I'll tell you this. I am wrapping up a positioning project with one client. He's not here today, or else I'd have him talk about it. But let's just say that when we finally got it figured out and the copywriters nailed it, it was a moment where he was in tears because he suddenly realized, that's it. That's who we are. That's what we're about. Now I am like unleashed. So loud and proud, right, Tim?
Loud and proud. Amen.
Ryan, thank you for jumping into the conversation, man. And I also appreciate the tough love, right? That we're naming names. So of course, it's all in the spirit of like helping our industry and helping everyone get stronger. So thanks for jumping in.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, thanks, Ryan.
All right, everyone. Thanks for being part of the weekly briefing this week. Good to see all your smiling faces. Marcel, I saw you jump in here late, man. Miss you, man. Hope you're well. All right. Thanks again, everyone. We'll see you next week. And between now and then, we'll see you in the community. Bye, everyone.
Bye.